JD Vance and his wife, Usha, stepped off the plane, ready to embark on what they had hoped would be a simple diplomatic visit to Greenland. The itinerary was set meet with local officials, discuss trade, and explore the possibility of a partnership between Greenland and the United States. But from the moment they arrived at the airport, it became clear that this trip would not be as simple as they'd envisioned. As they walked through the terminal, they were met with stares, cold, hard glares from the local residents. A group of Greenlanders stood near the entrance holding signs. The bold letters screamed, "You don't belong here. Respect our history and go home." Usha squeezed JD's arm, her face a mix of confusion and concern. "Why are they angry?" she whispered, her voice tight. Vance felt the weight of the stares but tried to remain calm. "Let's not jump to conclusions," he said, though the unease in his voice betrayed his own surprise. They continued walking, trying to ignore the hostile murmurs from the crowd. As they passed, a burly man with a thick beard stepped forward, his voice rising above the whispers. "Go back to America. You are not wanted here," he shouted, pointing toward them. The crowd around them seemed to nod in agreement, their voices growing louder. Usha clutched Vance's arm tighter, the situation unfolding far from what they had anticipated. "JD, what is going on?" she asked, her voice now trembling slightly. Vance gave her a reassuring smile, though inside he was wondering the same thing. "We just need to get to the car, okay?" Vance said, glancing toward the local officials who had come to greet them. But even they seemed uncomfortable, casting quick glances toward the protesters as they ushered them into the awaiting vehicle. As they drove through Nuuk, Greenland's capital, the protests only seemed to escalate. Crowds had gathered at street corners, holding more signs, chanting slogans in Greenlandic. Their angry expressions and fervent gestures only deepened the tension in the air. Vance's mind raced. Had something changed since they last spoke about this trip? What had they missed? Later that day, Vance stood behind a podium in a conference room, attempting to convey a message of cooperation. The room was filled with local journalists and government officials, all of whom were ready to hear what he had to say. Vance started off by discussing shared economic interests and the promise of respect for Greenland's sovereignty. "We believe that a partnership between the United States and Greenland could be mutually beneficial. Our goal is not to impose anything on you. We want to offer our support and respect for your independence," Vance said, his voice steady but his mind still distracted by the protests. But as he finished speaking, a hand shot up in the audience. A journalist stood, his expression serious. "Mr. Vance, it has been suggested that the United States has long-term plans to annex Greenland, but without the immediate public statements that were made by your president. Is this correct?" The room fell silent. The journalist's question cut through the air, and Vance's face tightened. He wasn't expecting this. The tension from the protest outside had somehow seeped into this room as well. "Our message is very simple," Vance said, regaining his composure. "Yes, the people of Greenland will have the right to self-determination. We hope they choose to partner with the United States because we are the only nation on Earth that will respect their sovereignty and their security." The audience murmured, some nodding, others eyeing him suspiciously. But then, another voice cut in from the back of the room, a man standing tall with an intense glare. "But that's just it, isn't it? The United States wants to control us. You come here dressed in your fancy suits and talk about partnership, but everyone knows what you really want." The room grew colder, and Vance felt the weight of the man's words. He turned toward him, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Sir, I assure you that is not our intention. We want to help, to work alongside you," Vance replied, his voice steady. But the man shook his head, his tone dripping with disdain. "Help? You come here with your help like you did to every other country. First you offer aid, and then you take control." Usha, who had been standing quietly beside him, spoke up, her voice slightly shaken. "What's the real issue? Why does everyone think we're here to take over?" A moment of silence passed before the man spoke again. "Because it's happened before, lady. We've heard the talk. The United States wants Greenland. You just want to be polite about it and play the long game. But we won't be your pawn." Vance's chest tightened, and he could feel his blood pressure rise. This wasn't the conversation he'd been hoping for. This wasn't about diplomacy or mutual respect. This was about fear, and it wasn't going to be resolved in an afternoon. Later that evening, Vance and Usha found themselves seated at a long, elegant table at one of Greenland's finest restaurants, nestled against the fjords. The city of Nuuk was quiet outside, the snow falling gently in the distance. But inside, the tension was palpable. A large fireplace crackled in the corner, but it did little to warm the atmosphere. The meal began with small talk, pleasantries about the weather and the beauty of Greenland's landscape. But soon the conversation took a sharp turn. One of the local officials, a middle-aged man with a sharp face and steely eyes, took a sip of wine before speaking. "Mr. Vance, we've heard your message about partnership, but you must know that the people of Greenland are very protective of their sovereignty. Your government is not the first to try to make deals here." Vance nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "We respect that. We understand the history here. This is not about taking your land or controlling your people." But the official was not convinced. Respect doesn't mean much when your president is still talking about buying Greenland. He leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "This is not a sale. This is our homeland." Vance glanced over at Usha, who seemed unnerved by the harsh tone. She had been following the conversation quietly, but now she spoke up. "We're not here to buy anything. We're here to offer cooperation, to build a relationship." Her voice was softer but carried a clear note of frustration. The official eyed her before responding with a hint of bitterness. "Then why does your country keep suggesting that it should be in charge? Why not leave us to handle our own future?" Vance and Usha exchanged a glance. This was no longer a polite dinner with diplomats, it had turned into a confrontation. The deeper issue was clear now. The people of Greenland feared they would lose their autonomy, not just to the United States, but to foreign powers in general. As the night drew on, Vance and Usha retired to their hotel room, hoping for a bit of peace. But as they entered, a loud bang echoed from outside the window, followed by angry shouts. Usha rushed to the window, her face paling as she saw crowds gathering below, waving flags and chanting in Greenlandic. "What's happening?" Usha asked, her voice quivering. Vance quickly moved to her side, his expression hardening as he saw the situation unfold. Protesters were marching through the streets below, their torches illuminating the night. The chants were growing louder, angrier. One of the protesters noticed them at the window and shouted, "You think we'll bow to you? Get out of our country!" Vance turned away from the window, tension flooding his body. "It's escalating," he muttered under his breath. Usha felt the cold chill of fear grip her heart. "JD, we need to leave. It's not safe." Vance stared out the window for a long moment. He knew it was too dangerous to stay, but he also understood the message being sent. Greenland wasn't just resisting, they were rejecting any form of foreign influence, especially from a nation as powerful as the United States. The next morning, Vance and Usha boarded the plane, their mission a failure. They had come to build bridges, but instead, they had only uncovered the deep wounds of a nation unwilling to bend to foreign pressure. As the plane ascended into the sky, Vance looked out the window one last time. The fjords of Greenland glimmered in the sunlight, as distant and untouchable as the people's resolve. "This isn't over," he said softly to Usha, his voice tinged with both regret and determination. "No, JD. But it's clear now that some things can't be bargained for." And with that, they left Greenland behind, their hearts heavy, their mission unfinished. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It helps us reach more people and share more inspiring content. Your comments are incredibly valuable, and who knows, your words might just inspire someone else today. Let's keep spreading kindness together.